Hi, today we're about to do our monster review. Today's review is going to be over a monster that everybody seems to either love or hate. In most cases, we're going to go with hate on this one because it's a monster that gets no love. His name is Daphnis. He has two pretty decent skills, the first one being a stripper for beneficial effects. The second one, which will cause a cooldown on all of the enemies from an AoE strike. Both of these are pretty solid skills. Even the leader skill is pretty good, 33% critical rate. That skill is only found on a couple monsters like Camilla, so it's really good. Hellfire is a skill that, well, to some degree is both good and bad. To most people, they look at this monster as bad, mainly because the family of the Fairy Kings has always been really strong. You've got the wind one, which is always the most preferable in PvP. The water one, which is a arena king. Even the light and dark ones are not half bad. I've actually seen the next one used in G1, G2 conveniently for its leader skill, mainly because a 55% resistance is unheard of. But the fire one doesn't really get much love. Its first and second skill is shared by most of its friends, excluding Ganymede and I believe the light one. The rest of them are the same, so he's an all-around good guy as far as doing damage. Understanding correctly, the water one, the fire one, and I believe that's it, also the light one apparently. They're all attack-based monsters. But Ganymede gets a weird kind of, third skill. Hellfire, as it's called, decreases the HP of yourself and an enemy target by 30% each, with a flame, and decreases the HP by 15% each if it's a boss. Now, that's only if it's a boss. If it's not, it does the following. It says, inflicts great damage to target, increases shield at 30% of the inflicted damage for 3 turns afterwards. So, this skill on paper decreases HP of yourself and doing 30% to that opponent's HP as well. This is good if you have good runes for building lots of damage, but overall it's not as good as it could be. It got a buff, and in the buff it gave it a shield, which is really nice because this monster loses HP as it is actually doing damage. But in a sense, it's kind of like a suicide bomber in that it does this huge amount of damage while knocking itself out slightly. Hence, it's giving you a shield after decreasing your HP and a target by 30%. So, what do I think about this? Well, for one, I believe that these reviews are all equally bad and honestly atrocious. Most people will never give this monster credit for being half decent just because most people have claimed it to be one of the worst Nat 5s. But I, for one, would like to disagree. This monster gets no love because of its third skill, but it disregards everything else about it that is most appreciable. Now, I'm not going to say that he's the best, because he's not. There's obviously going to be better monsters, as there always has been. But a skill like Hellfire is not that bad when we turn them around. Hellfire gives you a shield, and it knocks out a good amount of damage based off of the HP. So, it's good for you because you can do massive damage regardless of the opponent you're facing. This is also really good for bosses because you can give yourself a good amount of damage and sustain a nice shield according to who you attack. So, pretty good on paper. What really makes them good, though, is its leader skill. Most people will underestimate the critical rate leader skill because it's found on a lot of ranges of monsters. I know Theomar has a 20% leader skill. I know Camilla is one of the only few, if not the only one, that shares this leader skill. But it's an all-around good skill because you can build this monster with half-decent attack and really good crit damage and not worry about the crit rate for the team. I, for one, believe that Daphnis has the potential. I believe that a buff is in order as far as getting rid of some of this fallback, because this is a Nat 5. exactly want him to deal damage to himself, but I don't believe he's a bad monster. If you got rid of that dealing damage back to yourself, I believe this move could be pretty strong itself. Now, this is not a bad unit because you have 2 skills, really 3 if you're including a leader skill, that give this monster so much potential. The Overwhelm is absolutely marvelous. It's like a mini Ganymede in itself, because being able to put all of your opponent's monster skills on cooldown for 1 turn is really good, especially for arena in some ways. Guild battles could also be useful. The Serenity, which has a chance to remove beneficial effects after 2 hits, that's equally good. It's not a skill that's bad. These are solid skills across the entire board of these monsters. But this monster is looked down upon just because his brothers tend to get the better of the skills, but I do not think this monster is bad. I believe that he is underestimated, and for that matter, he does not get the love he is appreciated for. I want to give a shout out to one of my subscribers, because he actually brought it up to me saying that, this monster is not really that bad. He's actually pretty good. And I know he left a review here. I was trying to show it to you because he actually does a pretty good job. Here it is, Doctor. So Doctor has a pretty decent build with a good amount of crit damage, excluding his crit rate leader skill, which pretty much puts him at 100%. And he's on a Blade Violent build. See, let's look at his skills real quick. He's on attack, crit damage, and speed. Now this is pretty good given the standards. The speed is really good. The attack is really good. The crit damage, you could always find better crit damage runes, but there comes a point where if you have any more than say amount, it doesn't really matter because you're doing enough damage to knock out most monsters in general. I think this is a pretty good build, and I would go buy it if you're trying to build your own monster. Just because, Daphnis is definitely a monster you want to put damage on. But he's not a monster you have to worry so much about crit rate, because a 33% leader skill knocks his crit rate up to 99% right here, which basically means he's always going to crit 165% plus damage on top of whatever that attack is equal to. The speed, you could always have more speed, but I don't think he's really a monster you need a speed tune. He's really a damage dealer and needs more HP attack instead of the speed like some monsters really do. So I think this is a pretty good build. I'm going to go into a battle real quick and just show you the productivity of the skills. I see here I've just been having a little fun here. So what we'll do real quick is we will choose a monster like Galeon. We will then choose Doctor's monster. And I know he doesn't have the leader skill in this scenario, so we can't even use that. We can use this though. We'll give you similar circumstances because I do not have a Daphnis, unfortunately. I hope to have one someday, I just do not have one right now. And we'll throw in something like this. Now, is this a great team? Not necessarily. But I do believe that using Konamiya would be beneficial for giving monsters like Daphnis more turns. If you wanted to sub, you could always put Raccoony because he provides some stability. Because remember, Daphnis does lose some HP, so it might be pretty cool if you were able to top that off on top of him. If that's in your standards. Let's see. That'd be just about it. We'll go ahead and go through with this with what we have, because I don't want to get too colorful with it. And we're just going to see how much damage this monster can actually do. I'm expecting a pretty big amount of damage, considering that this monster is runed so well. And we're going to actually start off with the third skill after we do Hua. Let's hope Hua doesn't proc 4 times. Okay. So now, the moment of truth. How much damage can Hellfire do under the absolute best circumstances? We've got attack buff, we've got defense break, we've got a decent amount of crit rate on top of massive crit damage. Let's just see it. Alright, so we got a crit hit right here, that's good. Alright, that's going to do 54k damage. And he is on a violent set, so he did proc, so now let's see what his first skill can do. Alright, so I saw about 23k damage, that's pretty good. And then we had Hua do the infamous revenge strike. So we'll just do this. That didn't work. We'll do that. We'll just see how much it does in general because I am curious about that. So using Hellfire again, it does 1,000 deducting plus 23k, so it's doing massive damage without even a defense break. Now let's see if this defense breaks. Awesome. Don't proc. Okay, good. Now let's see the second skill. Overwhelm. This skill is pretty common, most people know about, but I'm just doing this for fun mainly. Alright, that's doing 14k, I think. It was like 13, 14. Alright, well, that was fun with that. Now let's see some major damage here. Let's do test number 2. See, yep, just about the same result. So you get massive amounts of damage and a pretty decent shield. The only thing that most people are going to argue is bad about this guy is the fact that he does lose HP, and it doesn't make him very pleasing for people who want to use him competitively. He's really a one-trick donkey. He doesn't have these massive abilities that some Nat 5s have, but is he bad? Not necessarily. I wanted to take one more look at something that most people are probably not going to be looking at. It's not about him. When it comes to Daphnis, so let's look at his skill cooldown. Alright, so Hellfire. I'm going to assume that if you max out his skill cooldown, it's going to be a 3-turn cooldown. Correct me if I'm wrong, but by saying that, you can honestly know that this monster is really good. Because you can use a skill, proc, or maybe get like an attack bar buffed by Raccoon or Garuda, and get more turns. And you can use this skill more than once without worrying too much about it. You know, remember that if he has a shield up, he will actually not take damage from his skill. That is a pretty cool idea in general. It'd be pretty nice if he is going to take damage to himself, that he got something more than just a shield, maybe immunity. You know, something like what the Water Monkey King gets after it uses its skill. It's just a thought, but I don't think it's a terrible idea, especially for a minor buff that would give this monster the potential to be a higher ranked monster that more people used. That's all for this game. I'm just glad y'all tuned in. Thank you for watching, and